my name is Anna and I love trying vintage recipes. So today I'm making 3 dinner menus from the 1950s. And I am excited to say that this video is part of a collaboration with Jen Chapin. If you haven't seen her videos, Jen is a full-time working mom and she makes tons of videos on meal planning, freezer meals, productivity, grocery hauls, all that good stuff. I've watched her channel for a couple of years now and I absolutely love her videos. I find them very inspiring. If you don't know what to make for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever meal, visit her channel and you will get a ton of ideas. She's also a cookbook author. Hold on, I have the cookbook. This is Jen's cookbook, Essential Pantry Cookbook. Tons of great recipes in here as well. I'll link this in the description down below. And it just so happens that we both share a love of cookbooks and vintage recipes. So after you watch my video, please be sure to visit her channel and watch her video as well. And if you're coming here from Jen's channel, thank you so much. Welcome, so glad to have you. So we are both going to be cooking from Better Homes and Gardens' new cookbook. This was published in 1953, and I'll talk a little bit more about this book later. So my first menu is going to consist of Irish Italian spaghetti, green salad with French dressing, and brownie pudding for dessert. I think I'm gonna start with the salad dressing just because I think it could benefit from some time in the refrigerator. Now I said French dressing, and usually French dressing, at least modern day French dressing, makes me think like a thick, orangey red, tangy dressing. And that's not what this is. I think it's gonna be kind of orangey red because it does have some paprika in it, but I think it's gonna be more of a vinaigrette. And that is the recipe that I'm following. I've really been trying to make an effort to be more organized by putting my ingredients on these trays and like prepping them ahead of time. We'll see if it works. I got these little trays at Costco. If I can, I will link them in the description down below. So basically I'm just putting all of my ingredients in this jar and then I'm gonna shake them up and that'll be salad dressing. This recipe starts with 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, a couple of tablespoons of white vinegar. I need 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I've got my teeny tiny little juicer here that my mom gave me and it happens to hold exactly 2 tablespoons. I'll link this too if I can find it. So it just comes off like that. And I've got exactly 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. This is salt and sugar. I'll have the amounts in the description down below. Some dry mustard and paprika, a dash of cayenne. That's a dash to me. That's like a little pinch. So it's really not that red. It's a little bit red, but definitely not as red as I would normally think of French dressing. So I'm gonna pop that in the fridge and move on. Next, I'm gonna work on my brownie pudding. Sift together flour, baking powder, granulated sugar, cocoa, salt. Baking powder, granulated sugar, cocoa, and the salt. Oh, let's drop the salt. Add milk, vanilla, and shortening. So I do have to melt my shortening, my milk, and vanilla. I am going to go in with a spatula. She is thick. Go in my shortening. It says to pour it into a greased 8 by 8 by 2 inch pan. There's no pouring with this. It's like, mix brown sugar and a 1/4 cup of cocoa. Brown sugar, brand new package of cocoa. Sprinkle over batter. Pour hot water over entire batter. And now I have to bake this in a 350-degree oven for 40 to 45 minutes. We're gonna be very careful getting it over there. The last thing I'm putting together is my main dish, the Irish Italian spaghetti. Irish Italian. I don't know. I've never heard of this dish. It doesn't even really ring a bell. Like sometimes dishes will have different names and I'll be like, oh, it's this other thing. I know it as this other name. I don't know what this one is. So if you do, if you've had this, please let me know in the comments. A couple of tablespoons of oil. And then I have 1 onion that I've chopped up. So I just need to let that cook a little bit until golden, it says. I love when vintage cookbooks say cook until golden. So my onion is just starting to turn a little bit brown, and now I'm adding a pound of ground beef. This is just a little over a pound. I can never seem to find just like straight up 1 pound. So this is maybe like 18 ounces. And it doesn't say to drain anything, so I'm not gonna. Along with the meat go some spices and seasonings. We've got some salt, some black pepper, and chili powder. I'm gonna stir that up. It says Tabasco, we're a Frank's Red Hot house. That is what I have, and that is what I'm gonna use. A dash of red pepper flakes. We're getting a little zesty in this dish. I don't hate it. A good mix. So I'm gonna lower the heat, and I'm supposed to cover it and simmer for 10 minutes. I let this go for 10 minutes. That is what we have now. And next, the very secret ingredients. We got some canned soups. You know that I am not afraid of a canned soup. We are starting with a can of good old cream of mushroom. Oh heck, that made a plop. And tomato soup. Oh boy. Stir that all together and see what we got. It's looking orange. Sure, well, here we are. I get to cover this back up and I have to simmer it for, it says 40 to 45 minutes. That seems so long. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on it and see kind of how it goes. And then also, while that's simmering, I'm gonna be cooking up some spaghetti. Okay, the timer on this brownie pudding is just about to go off, and look at that. I am so excited to give it a try. Really excited to give all of this a try, but especially brownie pudding? What? Let's start with our little green salad here. I kept it really simple. I did make the French dressing, so let's see how that goes. It's just a nice little lemony vinaigrette. You know, I wouldn't say like it's earth-shattering, but it is nice, it's refreshing. I'm a fan of making my own salad dressings. I tend to like my salad dressing a little bit more acidic. So a lot of times I'll reduce the amount of oil that goes into a recipe, but I think this is perfectly balanced. Next up, we have our Irish Italian spaghetti. Before I give this a try, I'm gonna be honest with you, there was a lot of grease floating on the top of this. Now, typically when I make a vintage recipe, I like to make it straight through. If I'm trying it for the very first time, I will make it straight through as close to the instructions as possible. So I didn't drain any of the fat away. If this is good and I decide to make it again, I would definitely either use lower fat beef. I used 80-20, or I would drain the fat away before I add those soups. Also, I don't know that I've ever eaten spaghetti on camera. Okay. Oh, come on. That's actually really good. I mean, not that I expected it to be bad. I did let this cook for the full 40 minutes, and I think that it's necessary. I think initially I said, oh, that seems so long. No, I let it go for the full 40, and all of the flavors just kind of came together. It's got a little zest to it, which I'm very excited about, because I think a lot of vintage recipes, at least to me, they tend to be a little under-seasoned, but this had a little Tabasco or Frank's Red Hot. It had some red pepper flakes. This is a winner. It has canned soup in it. If you don't like canned soup, I would say don't make this. The brownie pudding, it's still warm. Looks really good. That is so good. You know how some brownies have that like top crust that's like a little shattery? That's what this has. And then it has that delicious sauce from the bottom. Oh, it's really, really good. So this was a really simple meal. Honestly, like I had most of this stuff in my pantry anyway. So I think this would be a good go-to for a weeknight dinner. All right, dinner number 2, I've got sweet and sour tuna, stick with me, buttered carrots, and a cookie called Crispette squares. Now, I know sweet and sour tuna probably doesn't sound like the most amazing thing that you've ever heard of. However, I think you could also make this with canned chicken. I wanted to try this, so I am gonna be using tuna today, but I think you could sub in canned chicken pretty easily. And speaking of tuna, I do wanna point something out. So if you look at the ingredients list for this recipe, it says use 2 6.5 or 7 ounce cans of tuna, drained and flaked. It probably won't surprise you to hear that cans of tuna have gotten smaller over the years. So This can right here, this is 5 ounces. I run into this a lot when I'm making an older recipe, vintage recipe. If you're using something from a can, you definitely want to pay attention to the size. So instead of using 2 cans of tuna, I'm going to be using 3 cans of tuna that are this size. Tuna talk aside, I'm going to be starting with these Crispette squares. Cream shortening and half a cup of sugar. We have half a cup of brown sugar. This is going to be sort of a crust that goes on the bottom of the pan. 1/4 of a cup of butter flavored shortening. I use shortening because that is what it says to use in the recipe. Cut flour and salt into creamed mixture. So I have a cup of flour, just a little dash of salt, as a dash. My pastry blender broke. I have not replaced it yet, so we're gonna start with a fork, but we may go in with some hands. I'm not very patient, so it will probably be hands. It's kind of like wet sand. It's usually what you're looking for when you're cutting something like butter or shortening into flour. So press that into the bottom of a square pan. It says 9 by 9, I only have 8 by 8, so hopefully this will work. So that is the first component of our Crispette squares, and now I have to bake this in a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes. Now we're gonna move on to the main component of our cookies, the topping, I don't know, the filling, whatever you wanna call it, but I've never heard of Crispette squares. So if this is something you've made before, or it's something that you remember from growing up or from like a family recipe, I would love to hear about that, so leave me a comment. Add remaining cup of sugar to eggs and beat until fluffy. Cup of brown sugar. These have been sitting out for a moment. 2 eggs. If you're building a house and you want a kitchen island, put outlets on both sides. Fluffy enough. Add remaining ingredients and mix thoroughly. So, remaining ingredients: vanilla, a little bit of salt, a cup of chopped walnuts, a cup of shredded coconut. This is sweetened. I'm gonna give that a little mix before I do the final. And that final ingredient is gonna be a cup of crisp rice cereal. Is that what they call it? Yes, crisp rice. And that's what we got. So once our crust is out of the oven, which should be pretty soon here, this goes on top of it. Hot, very hot. Now I have to put this stuff, this layer, on top. It smells really good. So back into the oven at 350 degrees for 35 minutes. So I'm gonna move on to my sweet and sour tuna. I have a couple tablespoons of butter melting in my pan, and then I also have a little bit of water going over here for my buttered carrots. Y'all, when I tell you, this cookbook says to cook your carrots for 25 minutes. Okay, we're cooking our carrots to death, I guess. I'm gonna let that melt. And then I have to add pineapple tidbits. Now, cooking pineapple in butter is not something that I can say that I've often done, but it doesn't sound bad. And I'm just supposed to cook this for about 3 minutes. Just to show you what size can that was, it was a 20-ounce can of these pineapple tidbits. I reserved my pineapple juice from the can. I drained the pineapple. I'm supposed to add about half of this. And I have 2 cups of green pepper strips here. That is a lot of green pepper, wow. So I'm gonna stir that up to combine a little bit. It'll lower the heat on that and then cover it and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. So our 10 minutes are just about up. That is what it looks like. I have a cup of boiling water here. I have to dissolve a bouillon cube in it. Ta-da! There it is. And then I also have some cornstarch here. It's very common to make a slurry to thicken sauces. So I'm adding the remainder of my cold pineapple juice to the cornstarch, and I'm gonna stir that up. And that is what I'm gonna use to thicken up my sauce. Here it goes. It feels like at this point everything kind of moves quickly. So I've got my dissolved, whoops, bouillon cube, not quite dissolved, obviously. We'll just smash that in and give that one little last stir. Cornstarch slurry, soy sauce, and vinegar. And it is thickening just a little. 1/3 cup of sugar. Oh, there goes a rogue pineapple. It's always a little harder to do something when there's like a camera on a tripod in front of you. Now that that has thickened, I have my tuna. That is 3 cans of drained tuna. Just a little bit of salt. Wow, that is bubbling. And just a little bit of pepper. And really now I just need to let the tuna heat through before I serve it. Got my plate right here. I'm gonna start with the carrots. I know what carrots taste like, but I love carrots. These are just cooked in a little bit of boiling water with some salt and butter. I didn't cook them for 25 minutes. I cooked them for less and they're still really soft. So I don't know what those instructions were. And now moving on to our sweet sour tuna. This was to be served on a bed of chow mein noodles. I actually like that. If tuna is a little off-putting to you, do this with canned chicken. Do this with like a pulled rotisserie chicken, or if you've got like some shredded cooked chicken in your freezer. I think the sauce itself is a really excellent base. I would probably add a little bit more variety to the vegetables. I like green peppers, but I think this would be excellent with maybe some bamboo shoots, maybe some carrots or broccoli, water chestnuts. I think that would give it a nice crunch. But honestly, it's pretty good with the tuna. I like it. So that just leaves my Crispette square. Reminds me of a pecan pie, like the smell of it, I mean, because when it was baking it smelled incredible. And even the top of it kind of looks a little pecan pie-esque. It's very crumbly, so you are gonna make a mess when you eat this, just be warned. But yeah, it has a very like pecan pie quality to it. Kind of also reminds me of like German chocolate cake frosting, so that like broiled coconut icing, I guess you could call it. I want the Rice Krispies to be a little crispier. I think they sog up a little bit in the oven, but really like if you like pecan pie, you would probably enjoy this. So second dinner, pretty darn good. A little unusual probably, but I think you could make a couple of substitutions and update this dish a little bit if you would like. For my third and final menu, I'm going to be making cheese bunnies. Yes, I definitely chose that recipe because of the name. Calico salad bowl and brown Betty for dessert. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the salad because it needs to chill in the fridge for at least an hour. So that is my recipe, and you might notice the French dressing right here. And yes, that is the very same French dressing from my first menu. So I made enough for both my first menu and this menu. Kind of worked out perfectly like that. It says combine all ingredients except lettuce and mayonnaise. So I have some peas. These are just all vegetables that I cooked in boiling salted water. So peas, carrots, and some diced potatoes. Look at how colorful. I cooked the potatoes on the firm side because I didn't want them to get squishy. Got some onion. This called for diced onion, and I just grated this on a box grater because I don't love crunchy onion, and this makes it a little bit more tolerable for me. I know. One of the carrots flew into the parsley, but it's going back in anyway. And it calls for 1 diced pimento, but the pimento that I have is already diced. So I'm just gonna put in maybe like a tablespoon. Pimento is just one of those very like retro feeling ingredients. I pretty much always have some in my pantry or fridge because I make so many vintage recipes. Usually one of them will call for it at some point. The French dressing that I made for my first menu, I just need to shake that up a little bit. This is just a nice, I guess, marinated vegetable salad. I'll have the amounts of all of this in the description. Give that a stir, and that just needs to chill out in the fridge for about an hour. So next I'm gonna work on my dessert, the brown Betty. I'm making apple brown Betty, but they do give instructions for different types of fruit. This particular recipe had something a little bit interesting about it. I have made apple brown betty before. Actually, I think I made it on this channel, but this had one ingredient kind of swapped out. This particular recipe actually gives you the option of using either breadcrumbs or graham cracker crumbs. Most, if not all, of the recipes that I've seen for brown betty use breadcrumbs. Yeah, I'm pretty interested to see how this turns out. It sounds really good. I mean, I like apple desserts anyway. Starts with some melted butter, and then you combine that with your graham cracker crumbs and cook them on the stove. Got a cup of graham cracker crumbs here. It just says to stir those together over low heat until browned. I mean, the graham crackers are already kind of brown, but I guess we'll get them a little bit more brown. Next, I'm gonna prep my apples, which means I get to use my peeler. Yeah, I'm only prepping 2 apples, but I'll take any excuse to dig this out and use it. Nicely prepped apples. I'm supposed to take my crumb mixture and put 1/3 of it into a baking dish. I just love the smell of graham crackers and butter. It smells so good. So now I'm arranging half of my apples over the first layer of crumbs. I used Granny Smith apples, but you can use whatever baking apples you like, especially if it's the fall and there are lots and lots of different types of apples in your area. Sprinkle with half of the sugar. I have some brown sugar here. Said you could also use white sugar if you wanted, but I like apples and brown sugar together. Half of the lemon peel. When you're zesting a lemon, make sure that you wash it before you do that. So this is more lemon juice than I'm gonna need, so I just need to make sure I don't use all of it. Just drizzle a little on top. Add the second layer of crumbs. Basically, we're just layering the same things in the same order. Second, third of these crumbs. I have to save a little bit for the top. The rest of my apples. The rest of the sugar. And then lemon juice. And then the rest of the peel. This will just give it a really nice bright lemony flavor. It smells so delicious. The rest of my crumbs. And then one more step, I just have a couple of tablespoons of hot water here, and I'm supposed to pour that over the top. So now I'm baking this at 375 degrees for 30 to 40 minutes. So the brown betty just came out of the oven. Look at that. And now I'm going to get started on my main dish, my cheese bunnies. Actually, it's just one bunny. I'm making one bunny because it's just me. And I loved that this particular recipe gives you step-by-step illustrated instructions. Ingredients. Ooh, I left this out. It got a little dry. My apologies. This is an unsliced sandwich roll. I found this in the bakery section of one of my local stores. Sometimes you can buy a whole pack. I was able to just purchase one from the bakery case. 1 egg and a little bit of seasoning. It just says seasoned, so I'm gonna be using some seasoned salt. I have some sliced cheese. It didn't say what kind, so I'm just choosing to use the sliced cheddar. Also butter. We do need a little bit of butter in this. Cut circle out of the top of a hamburger bun with your round cookie cutter, and don't cut through the bottom bun. So I have this entire set of round cutters that I purchased. I will link it because I use these. I mean, look at how many there are in here. You have something for every possible use that you could need. Is that about right? If nothing else, this will at least give me a guide so that I can like cut with a knife if I need to. Because this is, yeah, I shouldn't have left that out for very long. Maybe, you know, leave it in the package next time. And it says to just lift this out with a fork. I'm just gonna use my fingers to like tear this apart. Okay, so you have sort of like a little cavity in there. Place the bun on a cookie sheet and slip an egg into the little cavity here. I never trust myself to be able to like crack something and like get it in here. So if I ever have to like slip an egg into something else, I always like to crack it into a little dish first. This is where the butter comes in. I'm gonna add a little bit of softened butter, and now the egg actually goes in. I'm gonna season with just a little bit of this seasoned salt. You do whatever you like. First step is to bake this in a slow oven, which is 325 degrees for about 25 minutes. I'm just gonna keep an eye on it and see how it works out. All right, I just pulled this from the oven and the yolk is set. So now the final step is to top this with a slice of cheese and then pop it back in the oven for 5 minutes. And while that is in the oven melting and getting delicious, I just have to finish the last bit of this salad. Stir that a little bit. It's been in the refrigerator for quite a while actually now. It says at least an hour, but you can go longer. And now I have to add lettuce. As for the amount, it says half a head of lettuce. I just have romaine that I've already like chopped up for other salads. So I'm just gonna add that. Once the bunny is done, I'll plate everything and give it a taste. Lovely plate here with my little dessert. I'm not exactly sure about the bunny. Seems a little crisp on the outside. I'm gonna go in with a knife and fork. Okay, well that was crispy. I like egg in the hole and I thought maybe this is kind of like that. The yolk is not runny. That was probably me not pulling it soon enough, but it's basically bread and egg and cheese. You know what? I mean, really, you can't go wrong with that combination. It's kind of better than I thought it would be. I think it really comes down to how you season the egg. I used seasoned salt, but you could use whatever you want. I think it'd be great with some like bacon bits on top, or maybe even like laying the bacon on top. I think you could do a lot to customize this. That brings us to the Calico salad. Now it has some dressing on it, but it says I'm supposed to serve it with mayonnaise. I don't know if that means like put the mayonnaise all over it or like put some on the side. So I'm just gonna put a little here, just a little, because I don't, I don't know. Yes, I'm aware lots of salad dressings are made of mayonnaise. I'm gonna try it kind of without the mayonnaise to start, and then we'll try it with. It's pretty lightly dressed. The only seasoning that you really have is the seasoning that was in the French dressing. Dip this in the mayo. It's definitely better, but I still feel kind of like odd about squirting mayo on the top. So I'm kind of wondering if you could take the French dressing and mix it with a little bit of mayo and make more of a creamy dressing. It makes a little bit more sense to me. And I think it would work really well. I think it's tasty. I think it's maybe like a little bit under seasoned. And finally, the fun part, the apple brown Betty. It's an apple dessert. It's delicious. Would be even better with a little bit of vanilla ice cream. This meal feels just like a little bit picnicky to me, probably because of the salad. The salad and the brown Betty, you could definitely make those ahead of time and then make your cheese bunnies at the last minute. I really want to put bunny ears on this. Jen and I chose to cook from the Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook for this video. This was published in 1953. I have 2 copies because of course I do. This is actually an original 1953 copy, and this is a reprint. Back in the early 2000s, and maybe they still do this, there were a bunch of reprints made of this cookbook, the Betty Crocker picture cookbook that I cooked from previously, Betty Crocker's cookie book. They were just kind of going through and reprinting some of these older books. I actually picked this one up at Half Price Books for $3, and I decided to use this one to cook from rather than this one. They're exactly the same. The recipes are all the same. This one is just in a little bit better condition. I would rather save my delicate 50s copy just to kind of like look at and display. But yeah, that is something to keep in mind. Sometimes you can find reprints of these original cookbooks from the past. This particular cookbook, I love the binder style. I love a binder cookbook. It's just so nice to be able to lay this flat in the kitchen and cook from it. It's got the tabs in it, and the photographs are just beautiful. Of course, I flipped right to this weird pineapple with the olives. What is this called? That's a liver sausage pineapple. Oh no. Anyway, I really love these illustrations that they have on the intro pages to each chapter as well. Oh gosh, look at this one. You know, making candy together. Just so cute, just so cute. And there's also a lot of handy information and charts and things on the inside, back, and front covers too, about weights and measures. Sizes of cans, actually I should pay attention to that one. I always have to look up sizes of cans when I'm making a recipe. This is a really good solid cookbook to have in your collection. Maybe you have one that has been passed down in your family. That is always very special. Because this was published in 1953, it's likely that maybe your mom or your grandmother or someone in your family had this in the past. As for the recipes, let me think here. I mean, it's not hard to love brownie pudding. That was so good. It was kind of like a hot fudge cake. It was ridiculously easy to make. That is something I will definitely make again. I was very surprised by how much I liked the Irish Italian spaghetti. I didn't think it would be bad, but I didn't think it would be as good as it was. The sweet and sour tuna, actually, super delicious. The sauce itself is a good recipe to have, and you can just kind of add any meat you want, or don't add meat at all. Just put, you know, vegetables or tofu or whatever you want in there. And those were both recipes I made on the stovetop. I didn't have to like bake anything for those. They didn't take that long really to put together. The cheese bunny was interesting, but really I think I prefer egg in the hole or eggs in a basket, whatever you want to call it. I made it in a previous video, but yeah, it was definitely cute and I wanted to try it. Overall, I had a ton of fun making this video because I always have so much fun making these videos for you. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Definitely be sure to head over to Jen's channel and check out her video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.